Welcome back to the Mobility Project. So it turns out, talking to one of my good friends up north, and he said, you know, it's pretty unusual to make 75 stretching videos in a row. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's a world record. Every day we're setting a world record in number of consecutive stretching videos in the world. So just welcome to the project of world champion stretching videos, world record in a row. Today's at number 75. What we're going to talk about today is part of your pelvis that gets ugly. And that's that psoas, flexor WOD kind of piece here. One of the things that we're going to go after today is really tack the psoas from the top, be able to mob all the way down, maybe try to capture some of the iliacus on the inside. That psoas attaches to one of those big hip flexors that we talked about. It's also one of the big chest flexors that brings my spine to the leg. The other thing we're going to go after, so anyway, that thing comes down and the iliacus right inside your hip bone, they blend into this kind of ilio-psoas complex, and they really are different systems, and then attach on the inside of the leg here. A lot of times if that's overextended, then that psoas gets tight. That's one of my mnemonics for, hey, I'm overextended all the time, your psoas is tight. And then that causes further bowstringing of the low back, pulls on those lumbar segments forward, also causes a gapping force at that SI, that sacroiliac joint. So let's go after that today. We're going to camp on that. We'll throw one other piece in for the extra rotation of the shoulder. And you're going to see that there's a relationship between being overextended at the lower pelvis, or being critically short here, and that leads me to overextension in the upper kind of thoracic. And remember that a fault this direction is the same as a fault from down below. Hands are going direction on either side, so if I'm overextended or short here, I'm by default going to be overextended here. If I'm overextended here, I'm not going to be able to have my extra rotation in a good position. So I'm not going to kind of be able to lock the arm out overhead. So we're really looking at maintaining that midline stabilization concept, that neutral spine. So here's homework number one. I've got a regular old lacrosse ball. I've also got this big old nasty ball, and this is like a kid's ball that's been taped up. And it's a little bit bigger, gives me a little bit bigger purchase on my belly. So, because I'm so svelte. So take a look. World champion. I'm just going to go ahead and camp out. And I got to put a clock on this because this is really, really bad. Now, when your psoas gets tight, the problem is that it kind of runs over a lot of those nerve roots that run out of your lumbar spine, almost into your sacrum. And if that stuff is tight in there, it's possible to kind of have a neurodynamic problem. It's a big, significant meat tunnel that gets shut down. So I'm just going to roll back and forth in here, biasing those corners. I can add internal and external rotation of the leg, which I'm telling you is going to make you vomit all over the floor quickly. This is power spew vomiting here. And so go ahead and load that thing up, and then I want you to internally and externally rotate the leg. And so basically you're going to try to feather that psoas up and over the ball. Typically we pump this way, but this time we're going to go ahead and try to crush in there. I'm also going to start working that into my my pelvis here, and not just be on the psoas coming in obliquely, but I'm also going to try to trap it against the kind of inner wall of that, that's so bad. And I'm just going to go ahead and hang out here and see if I can capture some of that iliacus. So exploring in this region today, it's so bad. Someone told me today that they wished that I could do the whole stretches the whole time, and I said, no way in hell. I have to do this in private. And secondly, I just got an email from someone very nicely asking, do we have any suggestions for whole body loosening? And yes, it's called red wine in a hot tub. So if you're having whole body issues, red wine in a hot tub. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take this piece. So go ahead and feather both sides. I want you to get 6 or 7 minutes dinking around with that. And then test, retest. See what happens once you open up that hip. And what you're going to find is that by loosening up this kind of proximal hip, you're going to have so much more room without having to feel like you have to control that upper segment. Or really buy space up here and it gives me slack down below, so that in movements like the split jerk or lunging or any of those things that we do, I'm not going to have to fight this overturn from the top. So that's the first piece. Second piece is go ahead and get on that flexor WOD. Remember, that's that big massive hip flexor here. I'm going to go ahead and camp out from kind of glute med, right on top of my hip bone, all the way over. Use the big ball, use the little ball. And what we're going to try to do is feather around. So I want you to get into that glute and really palpate and feather all the way across. And this doesn't feel good. Again, I can internally and externally rotate my leg just a little bit and feather those tissues. We're trying to pancake that down. It's pretty horrible. If you're a real man, you can gag as you do it. It's so bad. Feather back and forth across, and then roll all the way onto that hip flexor piece. We chronically see guys who are overextended, have tight butts, really tight hip flexor WOD. So that drives a lot of silliness down the knee. So let's go ahead and open up. We're going to hit this side and hit this side. Put about 8 or 10 minutes on that, and then let's get 2 minutes each side of really hitting extra rotation. So extra rotate, wind it up, which would be how we would want to do a muscle up anyway, in a hollow position. There's my full range. Boop, I lock the shoulder off. Now I'm in a tight position. That's where I'm going to be stretching from that extra rotated position. Let's go ahead and capture a minute or two really hitting, and then see if you can tie that whole foot into that position. All right? Heading to Chicago tomorrow. We'll see you there.